Hello, leader. Do you want to know what it's really like to lead in an industry where every decision has legal weight, emotions run high, and one misstep can have major consequences? Today's featured guest is also a client, and she knows that reality well. She leads a team in a space where Title IX isn't just policy, it's their daily work. In this episode, we talk about what it takes to show up with strength and empathy when the work is hard, the stakes are high, and people matter most. So whether you're in a regulated industry or just leading through complexity, this conversation will hit home. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast, smart leadership for women who mean business. If you're a woman who owns an established business with a team of 5 or more, and you're ready to lead with more confidence, clarity, and impact, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Shelley Warren. Each episode delivers practical strategies to help you build a high-performing team and become the leader your business needs next. Let's get started with this reminder. The team that got you here may not be the team that will get you there. I love introducing you to my clients. Today, you're about to meet Courtney Bullard, CEO of ICS Institutional Compliance Solutions, where they provide consultation services for schools, districts, and institutions in creating safe and healthy learning and work environments. Their work involves some heavy lifting because they help their clients navigate the challenges of compliance with Title IX and equity laws and regulations, emphasizing training and community engagement in areas like Title IX, workplace safety, civil rights, Clery Act, FERPA, hazing, and sexual misconduct. Courtney and her team strive to equip administrators with the necessary knowledge and tools for success so that their school can foster positive cultures and an enduring impact for their students, faculty, and staff. They offer a host of consultation services, including virtual and in-person trainings and an online community. Come on, I want you to meet Courtney. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast, Courtney.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm actually super excited to be a guest versus a host.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I know what that feels like. I'm happy to have you here on the podcast because we've been working together now for, I want to say 2 years.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And I know you're a podcaster. You know the value of podcasting. And I feel really connected to you. I feel like I know you and your team really well. And I am just so impressed with the niche that you chose to serve and build your law firm around. So I want to make sure that people understand that sometimes you have a calling to launch a business, and sometimes there's some incredibly bold women out there that decide they're going to raise their hand and serve in a really tough industry. And that's what you did. So I'm just really impressed with what you and your team do. So tell us, what is something like outside your industry that people often just misunderstand about Title IX and what you do?
Sure. So first, it's funny you said law firm because I really consider us to not be a law firm. My husband says it all the time because there are attorneys on our team, but we do a lot more consulting than lawyering. And sometimes we call ourselves recovering lawyers because we really try to serve our clients in a very practical, plain speak, non-lawyer way. But when it comes to Title IX, I think the hardest thing sometimes about the business is explaining it to the layperson, which is 98% of the people out there in the world, because what we do is so niche. And a lot of folks, if they hear Title IX, they think it deals with gender equity in athletics. And it does. That is definitely a part of it. But there's also other parts of Title IX that protect students when it comes to pregnancy accommodations and discrimination based on pregnancy. That's another aspect in a school district or an institution. So if you're a student at a school district and you get pregnant, or you're a student at an institution and you get pregnant, and we deal with both of those areas. But what we really probably do the most of is a part of Title IX that obligates school districts and institutions and how they respond to and address sexual harassment. That's the broadest term I can say. And it is hard. I was thinking about this before we got on today. My team and our company really kind of works in the shadows. Like we are all over, obviously, marketing and social media, but we really do work in the shadows. Like if you are talking to us, it is either because you are an administrator at a school who is obligated to respond in some way, and we do training for that, or because we're serving in a role as an investigator, let's say, for a school district or an institution. And so you or your child have experienced sexual harassment or allegedly experienced sexual harassment or being accused of sexually harassing someone, or you're a witness in a case. And so they're very highly emotional situations more often than not. Sexual harassment encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses sexual assault and rape. And so it can be some pretty heavy stuff. And when we're working with schools and how they can do better and comply with the law, which is obviously Title IX, it's not the most fun subject, but we really try to bring some levity, and we really try to lead with care and support. I think that's really what differentiates us. So those are a very long-winded way to answer your question. But most people, when they hear what we do, they think, oh, Me Too movement, things like that. I almost don't lead with the Title IX aspect because most people don't know what that even means. And a lot of people think we're advocates. Like, that's great, you represent survivors. And that is not what we're doing. We actually, in my mind, the way that we're trying to make a difference is getting schools and institutions trained in how they respond and kind of meeting them where they are in that respect. So again, really long-winded way of answering your question, but that's the 2-cent high-level overview. Kind of come up with our elevator pitch, my elevator pitch, and explaining it to people on the daily. It was pretty tricky when I first started doing this work.
There's so much involved with it. So even a stalking case where someone is being pursued and feeling very uncomfortable and very unsafe can lead to a lot of other things, which is why administrators and principals and teachers need to get involved and need to create that psychological safety so that people are talking about these things, because you don't want things to escalate, right? Because you don't want things to turn violent, even though sometimes they do. Do you also support individuals who have been stalked or harassed online, and then those who are being held accused of doing that? Is it the online space as well?
Yes. So that sexual harassment broad term encompasses rape, it encompasses stalking, it encompasses dating violence, domestic violence. And so we do have a lot of stalking cases we're investigating. In fact, I would say in the K-12 arena for school districts or charter schools, we see that quite a bit, especially because of the online Snapchat, all the things that the kids are doing these days. And we see it in higher ed too. Dating violence is also a pretty common allegation that we're investigating. And we're going in, acting as an arm of the school as an investigator. So we're meeting with the person who was allegedly stalked. We're meeting with the person who was accused of stalking, if we go with that example. We're meeting with any witnesses. And then we're helping the school determine whether or not a policy was violated. So I think a big misconception is people think that we're out there trying to solve a crime, in the criminal world that you see. And that's totally separate and parallel to what we're doing. But at the end of the day, at its basic essence, schools have policies and procedures to make sure they, just like you think about cheating on a test, policies for that. Policies if you get in a fight at school outside of dating violence, if you're drinking, all that. So this is it's a different element of that. Obviously, much more, like I said before, highly charged area oftentimes. And we are a neutral third party gathering facts and information, or we're a neutral third party making a determination as a decision maker, or we do informal resolution facilitation. So there's all these different roles that are required by law that schools have. And they are not resourced sometimes to do all of those roles. So we'll step in to do that, or we're training them to serve in those roles. And most school teachers or school administrators, both on higher ed and K-12 level, don't become like an English teacher or a principal thinking, I'm going to go investigate rape allegations.
Yeah.
Right. And
Come
so
on.
we're training them and trying to, when we train K-12, when we train higher ed, it's pretty different. But if you just take the K-12 context, we're like, look, we know this is hard. And most of them are not lawyers. And you did not come into this role thinking this is going to also be a part of what you do. And so we're trying to make it as accessible as possible so that they can do the job they've been asked to do. And in higher ed, you do see folks who do want to be Title IX coordinators. So Title IX coordinators are the people on the ground who schools and institutions have to have by law in order to kind of oversee the compliance efforts of the school. So what you see in in K-12 is they have 10 other hats they're wearing. They're a teacher or they're an administrator, plus they're over federal programming, programming, and then they're also doing Title IX. Whereas in higher ed, there are people that actually want to be a Title IX coordinator. And at larger schools, that is a whole profession that if you went back to 2000 and prior to 2011, didn't exist. So it's a pretty new profession still, but the churn rate, the turnover retention rate is like 3 to 4 years because it's rough. You're kind of on an island. And so we serve interim as Title IX coordinator, not something I ever thought we'd be doing as a business, because they're leaving all the time. And that's not good because that creates some gaps in response by a school or an institution. So all that to say, we're not representing, the person who was allegedly stalked or the person who was accused of stalking. We're there kind of as a neutral fact finder. We've done that, but it's more rare. It's so complicated. I feel like I have to do a whole training to explain what we do, but I think that hopefully gives a good picture.
Oh, yeah, that is helpful for sure. So how has your leadership style evolved from being a business owner to leading a business in this tough industry? Like, have you noticed that you've had to take on different attributes or lean more into a certain aspect of your personality in order to lead the business? Like, tell me, how do you lead with such tough, heavy lifting that's happening every day, not only for you, but for everyone on your team, including when you go to recruit people to come and join you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So we have what we call specialists. Those are the folks who are trained to do this work. We have 6 or 7, and we just hired an investigator who's starting soon. We have 2 C-suite positions that kind of oversee the specialists. And I would call that like our services side. Then we have a client development side, and then we have our operations. And it is interesting because when we're interviewing for specialists, they know what they're interviewing for. They're trained, hopefully, in this area. They've worked in this area on the ground typically. Not all lawyers. Some are former law enforcement, former mental health professionals, but they've done the work on the ground. And then we have like the operations and the admin support and the client development. My folks in client development came from the education space, so they understood it. But sometimes I fail to preface when someone's working with us, and I'll just use our marketing team as an example. They're on our listserv, so they can kind of see what's going on. And it's become this running joke with us. They were just here in town because when they first got on our listserv to see the questions that come in, we have a listserv as part of being a community partner with us, which is a different arm of our company. They were like, what in the world? Like they just, one of them was like, I have kids in school. I have to just mute this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really think about that because for us, it's sort of just what we do every day and we talk about it constantly. I mean, talking about sex and everything else is part of the day-to-day work. And so I've really tried to be better. We just are bringing on an assistant director of operations who was an independent contractor with us. And, when she came on as an independent contractor, you just throw her in, but then you're seeing all these slides with all these words and all these things. And, you don't really think about it. So that part has been interesting, but leading has definitely evolved. When I started the company, absolutely did not think it would be here. I was not someone who sat there and had a vision board or anything like that. My vision really was just to approach the work differently than the organization at the time that was out there. That was really a trailblazer doing it. So nothing against the way they approach it. I just wanted it to be different and felt like there was a missing link between the Title IX coordinators on the ground, for example, and lawyers. Like lawyers want to tell you how smart they are and say all these things, but you still got to go do it. So I, being former general counsel on the ground, experiencing that and supporting the Title IX coordinator there, was like, I just feel there's a way to do this better. And so you hear us like leading with care and support. That is how I went into it. It was mission driven without me really knowing it was mission driven. Like it was kind of subconscious, And so I started it thinking I'm going to do this thing on the side. And then it grew into what it is now. My leadership style has had to somewhat naturally change, but I realized really fast that I've never done that. I'm just a lawyer. Like I didn't go to business school. I didn't go to retreats and take mastermind classes on leading a company and scaling a company. That all came kind of later as I started listening to podcasts and thinking, okay, this makes sense. Your podcast where you always say like the people who got you here may not be the people that get you there. It was like immediately stuck in my mind early on when I started listening to you and working with you, because in my mind, it's like, well, if you came in with me, then of course there's this loyalty level. And I've been very lucky that most of the folks have stuck around and we keep growing. But there's been a few where I was really afraid. The one person I've let go, and you know this, I was really afraid to let them go. I was like, oh my gosh, they hold all this business. And if they go, the business will go. And they were toxic and they were not treating the team well. And so really having to grow a backbone a little bit more. I'm more of a people pleaser driven person to say, yeah, I'm not going to tolerate this. And then going through that experience and coming on the other side and seeing, oh, wait, okay, like that person was important, but they weren't the be all end all to the success of the business, was a pretty big learning experience for me and has helped me get a little more confidence now. And also I've realized now we're Enneagram people, and that's Betsy Smith on my team who kind of brought that forward. And doing that and like learning which Enneagram I am, which is an 8, by the way, I'm like, yes, I am motivated by protecting people. And so that is kind of how I operate. And so we did have a person leave, and kind of seeing that, I'm immediately was like in protective mode of the business, and my other people who were loyal and very frustrated that person had just gotten a bonus and everything else, has caused me to self-reflect a little bit more and seeing how I handle things. I am very protective of the business, but I'm also very protective of the people that work for me. And so finding that balance and expressing it in a way to my team has been new and different for me. And then having to operationalize, like I am an only child. There's a reason I started a business. Like I don't like to really be told what to do. I don't really like systems. I think, and so I don't want to put people in a box. I've worked in big law. I don't want to ever be that. So I have had to change my leadership style to come up with systems as we grow and to let people on the team kind of come into their own developing systems. That has been a big change for me. And back to the protectiveness, letting some people in on the team, especially my C-suite, my director of operations, on the not so fun part of the business, the paying the bills, the what is our revenue, can we make payroll? The protective part of me didn't want to bring them into it, because I'm like, that's not something they need to worry about. They just need to worry about, like, this is stressful and I don't want them to feel stressed. But trying to give some peeks into that has been a growing experience for me as well. But overall, I think just actually focusing on being a good leader was new for me. Managing people, that's all been very new. And then I'm just not a super formal person. So having to formalize things I've seen that need from some of our employees. Like, I need to know what the structure is, or I need to know. And so bringing everybody in line with that, which has really helped us as a company, but can be painful in the moment of like, okay, we are going to create 5R plans and we are going to have these more written expectations and not be so loosey-goosey has been interesting. But we do heavy work, but I'm really more CEOing now. I'm really like removed from the heaviness, but I'm again protective of like our folks work really hard on really heavy stuff and trying to find that balance as the need is so great. And we just keep, it's a good problem to have. We just stay so busy, but trying to just keep a thumb on, especially the specialist and how they're doing. That's been hard. We're trying to figure out how to lead best when all that starts going on, when people are starting to hit their breaking point and need a break and saying no to work and, not taking in new business. It's all been a learning experience.
Yes. Well, the one thing that I've noticed with you, Courtney, is you talk more about leadership now. Like you'll say to me, I want to be a better leader. I want to make better decisions. I want to be able to let go of control. I want to be able to trust her in that role. I want to go in and have a deeper, what I like to call adult conversation. Like you're more willing to have those adult conversations. You're more willing to take a stand on your expectations and your compliance and regulations and your brand, your reputation. And if that means upsetting someone or disappointing someone or saying no to someone, then you're much better prepared to do that now, because your go-to stance was to try and accommodate everyone and try and be friendly and nice and say yes a lot. But then what ends up happening there is there's like there's just over accommodation where everyone's treated a little different than the other one. And then that can be perceived as favoritism. And then there's also the whole proximity factor. And that's just when things get, well, you suddenly wake up one day and you realize, wait a minute, I don't like the way our team rolls every day. This is not the idea that I had for my team culture. I want to do something different. So you raised your hand and you decided, yeah, I do want to do something different. And, you've worked on some big projects this last year, not only with the client work that you and the team are doing, but you introduced the 5R work plan. You restructured Betsy and Celeste's role, who are your senior leaders on the team. You literally built a leadership team with some structure. You know what you're all about and what you ladies are collaborating on. You also introduced some more significant one-to-ones, drum beats. You're really starting to hold people accountable at a higher level, which those are the things that are all paying off, which are really allowing you to CEO now, right? Versus being so involved in the trenches. And yet when you do decide, because you lead a hybrid life, you're working from home, you also have an office that you go into, you also get on a plane and fly out and see your team members. You also participate in, these big facilitation sessions that you do for your clients. You'll definitely participate in those too. And you have a blended family. And you have a full life. So it's that whole idea of, wow, I can CEO now with a lot more ease than what it was initially when the business was younger, but the team was growing. And your brand and your reputation was continuing to accelerate. And I'm really happy to hear that you're looking to sense the health of the team. And when you sense, hey, we need to slow down here, even for a month, even for a couple of months. And then you delay those inquiries versus feeling like you have to jump in and take on every new project, every new client that comes in. Because then we end up, usually what we do is we load up a few people and then those people become just really overwhelmed, and then they're not feeling great. They're not doing their best work. And then it just becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, the folks on our team, all of them, specialists, operations, sales, whatever, everyone has a hard time saying no. So that's something we're still working on. And we're still trying to figure out like, what's the balance? What's too many cases? We did scale really fast. It was like drinking from a fire hose for a couple years. And I think we finally have gotten to a place where we could sit down before the beginning of this year and start to think about that infrastructure, which has been really fun and exciting. Rebranded, which has been really fun and exciting. And I am super fortunate because the people on my team are the best of the best. Like they're excellent across the board. And we've, learned from each other and everyone's kind of growing in their own way and they're all on board with that. And it's been pretty fun. Like when I sit and look back in the moment, you're just like tired and you're just trying to, react. I still haven't figured out the balance. I still haven't figured out how to get myself out of the weeds sometimes. I don't know. I think all business owners struggle with that. I was going to say small business owners, and we are a small business, but my daughter yesterday, I had on a podcast going to her state track meet, which was an hour and a half away, on small businesses. And she's like, why are you listening to this? You're not a small business. And I was like, yes, I am, babe. Like, we are still a small business, but we have grown quickly, and navigating that, growth can be painful and create a little bit of friction in the moment that then when you come out on the other side, you're like, we did this together and it's pretty awesome. But yeah, saying no, we fired a client for the first time. We, they weren't treating our team well. They're a really good client. When we pulled the stats at the end of the year that I showed everybody at our retreat, is to hit on the services side, here's our highest paid clients. And then on the community partner side, which is our membership side, and they were second or third, which I didn't even realize, when we hadn't pulled those stats yet. But it just had to be done. So I think taking care of the team is important for me. We're not doing it perfectly, but we're getting there. Betsy and Celeste have done a great job with their direct reports of really monitoring that. But, I think right now we might be in that zone of maybe took on a little more than we should have. And we're in that April, May are really rough, and kind of November on our services side. And so we don't have it perfectly figured out, but I am super proud of our team. And I think we do have a lot of transparency that I'm not sure most companies have. And I'm very proud of that as well.
How did you work through the mind games of letting go of control? Because as you said earlier, things happened really quickly for you in your business and you scaled really fast. So you needed to trust your team to step into that client-facing moments and really be a great extension of you and your brand and what you had built. So how did you work through those emotions? And not to say that they're ever really done either, because I think for most business owners, you got to have moments. A little bit of self-doubt can creep in, or a little bit of worry can creep in. So how did you, when you were looking at structuring the business where it was no longer going to be just you knew you needed a team. How did you think about choosing people to be client-facing? And then what kind of training did you give them, or what type of support did you give them? Not only did you feel great about putting them out there into the world, but they did too. Because I know that they, knowing Betsy and Celeste as well as I do, they are incredibly competent and incredibly confident. They got the double C factor there. They're without a doubt, they know their value. But how did you get them there?
I think they're already there. I mean, I will say I was very lucky, again, in Enneagram 8s work off their gut. Everything I do is just my gut. So I had never met Betsy. She called me and somebody else reached out and said, we've got this person who's leaving university where she was, and I think you should talk to her, who's a mutual friend. We went to lunch, and the next day I gave her something to work on. And it was just boom, off we went. And Celeste, we had worked together many moons ago before. I do think one of my strengths, and Celeste will say this all the time, is I am always looking at people's strengths, and I can pick it out pretty quick. And you can't always do what you're best at in a company. I mean, you got to do a lot of work. But immediately, with Celeste, she came from a corporate environment. We call her the mayor for a reason. She's really good with people. Everywhere we go, she knows everybody.
She's very approachable.
Yeah. And so the services side and bringing it in and talking to clients and talking about what we do, it's not something I wanted handled by our client development folks. They're phenomenal, but they're not lawyers. And so what's unique about us is if you're an institution and you want to engage us, you're meeting with one of our top people, Celeste. And if you're not meeting with her because she's out, you're meeting with Betsy or me. And they're always shocked by that. So that was the first place where I let go. And it really wasn't that hard at the beginning because I was underwater with the CEOing, and I'm like, I can't do these other things because of this factor. And so it was a natural fit. It's one that is scaled significantly, and we need to do some things to help her. But I think for her, I don't think she'd mind me saying, when she went into it, she was like, oh, you're just giving me this? Like, I said, I'm giving you, this is like a huge chunk of our revenue. And now I'm handing it over to you, and like, here you go. And she did amazing, came up with systems and all of that. And then Betsy, her strength is innovation, which is a big thing for our company. Having the big ideas, thinking about different ways to talk to clients and different ways to approach the work, staying on top of where things are going in the work, training. Celeste is an amazing trainer too. Betsy's got a real passion for the creativity part of it. And she's really good at have these unique and novel projects. Like, we've had some pretty big hazing cases that she's done where she goes into a school, assesses what's going on in a really bad hazing situation to make them better and respond to that and it not happen again. So she's kind of got these unique pockets. We did the Southern Baptist Convention. There was that whole sexual assault scandal. And she and I went in and did that as the subcontractor with the company, interviewing all the victims. She's really strong there. So kind of the novel things. So first, kind of Celeste took over that part. Then it was like, okay, Betsy's got this strength. Let's start working towards that. I laughed. You can't see on the video when you said, what kind of support did you give them? Because there was none for a while. Like, we're just out there like, let's do this. And then in working with you, it was like, okay, let's get them with Shelly. So we started doing that. We also had another person that they're working with on she calls herself, a tool-tastic person, but helping with systems, which really Celeste needed probably more than anything. And so that was helpful. And I think truly, I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast, that was a game changer, having them have their own coach, and that's my goal now, looking at operations, like, would this be helpful there too? So that, I think, was really the game changer, frankly. Having you come to our meetings, having like me identifying, this is what I think we need to focus on. I think we need to change our structure. Their titles didn't align with what they were doing. It's kind of a good marriage of me thinking of these things, talking about it with them, and then saying, hey, let's bring Shelly into the fold and get them working really intentional with her as well.
Well, what I enjoy about it is that I'm able to support them individually because they get their own individual calls with me, and you don't have to, right? So when you do have one-to-ones with them, they're more coming in with here's what I'm working on, here's what, here's the problem, here's the action I took, here's the results, where I'm spending the time with them kind of fleshing through that. So I like saving you time.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful. And I'm not an expert in the way you are in leadership coaching. Another change we made that I got from you, really, I don't know if it was directly or indirectly, is just trying to get on a quarterly system where it's like more tangible, bite-sized approach. Instead of like, my goals are all these 1,000 things. It's like, okay, let's just focus on quarter one. What are we going to get accomplished for each of them? Put some time frames together that are realistic, like not in 2 weeks. There's no way. It's okay. It can take 3 months or 4 months. And then the meeting again in quarter two to say, okay, how did quarter one go? Let's look at what we want to work on in quarter two. So yes, you coaching them, that's not my strength. Like, how to be a good leader. I mean, I think I'm a decent leader, but that's not 100% my strength. So bringing someone in that is their strength, definitely helpful. And also I felt like was a really important investment into them and therefore the business.
Yeah, I think it's always good to be able to pour into your highly valued people on your team. And I think it offers them a window into seeing another leader in action so that they get different points of view.
And I think for the rest of our team, I think at one point they're just like, what is happening? Because we probably didn't explain to them as much as maybe we should have at the beginning. I don't know. But, it's also important to pour into them as well. And so now that we've got this structure and finding out, well, who is interested in more of a leadership role, I feel like we're better equipped to when the business can support that and we get to that place. we kind of know how to set them up for success instead of kind of trial by fire, which is how I've run the business for a while, was like, oh, we need to add some, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I think we're much more set up for bringing them along should they be interested in going into more of a leadership role. And it's made me think more intentionally about professional development for them and really making sure they have opportunities to go and do things as well. So it's certainly, kind of trickled down to the rest of the folks at the company as well.
Yeah, because you have a good sized team now. So what would you say to another working professional woman who happens to have a family and lots of other commitments? What would you say to her? Is there one or two things that you do in your life that maybe you didn't initially, but now you can't imagine not doing anymore because it either saves you time, it saves you some energy, it just gets something off your plate, or someone else is now looking after that for you? Like, what are you doing to keep sane? Because, your family, they have a lot going on. Like, every single person in your family leads a full life. And you're that type of person, Courtney. You're all in. You're all in with every one of them because you love it. You love it and you love them. Yeah. And at the same time, none of us are 20 anymore. So when you look at other women that are, they have an established business, it's successful, it's growing, they have a team that they're also developing, and they have this family and local commitments and then extended family, what can we do for them today to kind of give them a hand up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're asking me in like May-cember when I've got graduation tomorrow and I had a breakfast this morning, it's like the craziest week. Twin in context, I have 5 children, 2 bonus children, 2 daughters, and then another, my niece who's now our child that we took guardianship of. So yes, they're all very busy. 2 went to college for the first time this past year. One got married. It's always a lot going on. And I love being a mom and I love being a stepmom. I love being that support for them. So I feel very fortunate that I can move my schedule around for the most part in order to make sure I can be at the big things. And not everybody can do that. I will say I work a lot. I don't really have boundaries. I don't think most lawyers do. I think it's kind of like how you're just programmed to be when you go to law school, especially if you work in law firms early on in your career. And I am trying really hard to do better with that. I think though, when I can, it's interesting, Betsy and I were talking about this yesterday, when I can work on a Sunday when things are quiet for a couple hours, it gives me I feel more sane through the week when I need to step away. And so I don't really look at it as, I'm working on the weekend. It's like, no, I'm just setting myself up for success for the week so that I can have this balance, this work life. It's not really about balance. I don't really like that word. It's more of an integration, but I can have that better flow and integration. Letting go has been, and delegating. It's interesting because I am type A, certainly a control freak in a lot of things. I'm not going to say I'm not, but there's not a lot. What we do is very important. I don't want to misinterpret. But like, there's nothing, it's not like a heart surgeon who is in surgery and it's life or death. Like, if something doesn't get addressed in that minute, it's okay. And so trying to give myself grace and have our team give themselves grace. We make mistakes. Like, things happen. It just does. And it's okay. And that doesn't really fire me up. I'm not like, oh my gosh, this person screwed this up. I'm at all. Like, it actually, I think being a mom or a mother figure of 5, there's a lot you can't control. And it's taught me a lot to let go and be like, okay, well, I thought today was going to look like this, but now it's going to look like this. And that's fine. And when I'm in a good place and I'm balanced and I'm getting myself organized, that's helpful. I think getting a leadership coach has been huge. It can feel very lonely being a business owner. There are big things that you're not going to share with everybody. It is a heavy load that I take really serious. There are a lot of people that rely on this business to support their families. So having a leadership coach, having my aunt who is also a leadership coach to talk to,
yeah,
my father, who's a businessman, and using those outlets and not being embarrassed. I think sometimes you sit there and you think, oh gosh, like we have some credit card debt. Like, is that normal? Like, I mean, that sounds so silly, but it's like, we have not gone and we don't have investors. We don't have deep pockets. We don't have, and I don't really want to. So being able to be in the leadership lab, talk to other folks, our lawyers, our business lawyers, I'll text her, just not being afraid to reach out and say, okay, I'm really stressed about this. And I don't want to tell my team this because they're going to think, are we going to have a business tomorrow? Yeah, we definitely are going to have a business tomorrow. But in that moment, I need that outlet. And so you've been that for me. Other business owners have been that for me. I think that's critical. And I would say every single business owner needs a business coach. And I think giving yourself grace and permission to let go of aspects of the business if you are going to scale. You can't do it if you're not willing to do that piece. And sometimes people are going to disappoint you. Like the person that left, I'm sure my team would say otherwise. I didn't take it personal.
Yeah.
But I was very frustrated. But again, because I felt protective of the business and the team, and that's okay. It's okay. So I think giving yourself permission is really important to delegate. And then once you do it, you're like, oh, this is lovely. Like I can be at graduation, not check my phone every 5 seconds because everything's going swimmingly. But I also want my team to also feel that. I want them to feel like they can step away and handle what they need to handle and everything's going to be fine. And that's been a big deal for us. Having backup and depth is like, I've preached it since day one. You got to have people that can step in if you're out and not feel like they can't be out. It's important. So I'd say the two things, getting a leadership coach, giving yourself permission to delegate and to step away. I haven't gotten to the level I'd like to. Like I would love to just go on a retreat, like come to one of your retreats, become on my own. I haven't gotten there yet. But some of that's just that pull with family and feeling like I don't want to miss things, but I'm working on it. I'm going to get there. It's going to come eventually. But I think that's so important for business owners. The burnout is real. I get it better now than I did at the beginning when I had a lot more energy, behind it. I do feel like I'm kind of I had a slump where it wasn't feeling as exciting. It was just feeling exhausting. And I've kind of come on the other side of that now. I think some of that was personal, just taking on our 12-year-old and things like that. But feels good right now that we've got a plan and we're working the plan. It's not perfect and everybody's, there's putting structure in place is hard. Like it's hard to get everybody on the same page and where they don't feel threatened. Like we're not doing this in order to tell you what to do, but we do need some kind of way to be accountable and know what's going on. And for me to know what's going on, I think giving yourself some grace and permission is really important and some ability to step away. But a leadership coach, and Shelley did not tell me to say this, by the way, I think it's crucial. A mentor or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't do it alone. You just can't do it alone. Too many people try, and they try sometimes for years to do it alone. And then they hit a wall, or the marriage breaks up, or they got teenagers that won't talk to them anymore.
Right.
All those things.
Well, and you think you can't afford it. I mean, I will say that's a huge part of it. Is like, this is an investment into yourself, which will trickle down to the business. But in the moment, you're like, I can't afford to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But it does pay back in dividends. And I will say there's so many resources out there. I mean, my team cracks up because once I start listening to podcasts while on the road or something, I come back with all kinds of things I want to try and do and think about. But there's so many free ways to get to listen and get some type of support. But that one-on-one or being in a group with other leaders, I think is so important. I was talking about this with my marketing folks. There's a think tank, a female specific think tank business group in Nashville. I just wish there was more of that. I think maybe there's not, just because a lot of the female business owners do have families. So when you're not businessing, you're familying. And it's hard to let yourself go do something other than that. But we really need more of it. If I could get some more energy, I see everything now as a potential business. I didn't early on. And now everywhere I look, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. Now that I feel like I know what I'm doing ish, but I think that's such a needed area.
Yeah, it is. It's also why we don't have more women on boards. It's because of the pull, the business pull and the family obligations pull For sure. Well, I appreciate you coming and being so open and honest with us today, Courtney. I know that as people are listening to this, what you're saying is going to resonate with them for sure. Tell us, how can our listeners stay more connected to you and the team and what you do? And even if they want to learn more about what is Title IX, as a simple way to educate themselves as to what it is, how can they best stay connected to you?
Well, if you want to educate yourself, the podcast is a great place to start. The Law and Education. You called me a podcaster. I'm not so sure about that, but I do have a podcast that I started.
Then you're a podcaster.
Yeah, back when there wasn't one on Title IX.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great way. Betsy has Living Title IX, which is a YouTube channel. That's a great way to educate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Want to listen or watch. And then our website is chocked full of stuff, blog posts, resources. I think you'll probably have that in the show notes. That's always a good way. We are big on LinkedIn. That is kind of where I started, like honestly, getting out there in the world and practicing my elevator speech that now is, something I do all the time. So connecting with me on LinkedIn, love for you to follow the business on LinkedIn. And we're on all social media channels, but that's probably the best one if you want to get a taste for what we do every day. And some people may not. I think a lot of people on the sidelines at soccer games, run for me because they're just like, I don't want to know what's going on in the schools. But more often than not, we get a lot of phone calls from friends who some things happen with their child. Nothing surprises us. And I'm always willing to have a conversation with anyone. And I really mean it. People that go out and do what we do, I've talked to at length to help them. I'm always wanting to connect. I just think community is really important. So if you ever want to know more, happy to have a virtual coffee with you. But those are the places to find us online.
Thanks so much, Courtney. I appreciate you and the team, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Shelley, and for all you do in supporting us.
You can hear it in Courtney's voice. She takes her work seriously, and she's also intentional about supporting her team so they can support their clients and their community. It's not been easy. She grew quickly, and that required her to build a team and then put the structure in place to support them, including learning to let go so she could focus more on those high-level CEO responsibilities of a growing business. It's been my pleasure supporting her in her leadership journey and also being trusted to host private coaching sessions with Betsy and Celeste, her senior leadership team members. Be sure to connect with Courtney and her team. All of her links are in the show notes. Are you inspired by today's conversation? If you're ready to step fully into your role as a leader and finally get out of the day-to-day operations for good, then it's time to join me inside the Leadership Lab. This 6-month high-touch coaching program gives you everything you need to build a strong leadership team so your business thrives without you managing every detail. With my signature tools, frameworks, one-to-one coaching, and even leadership development for your team, you won't just grow your business, you'll transform how you lead it. Apply now with the link that's in the show notes or pop over to the Stacking Your Team website and take the first step towards true leadership freedom. You don't have to figure this out all on your own. Leadership isn't a solo journey, and the right support can change everything. Together, let's build the leadership team that will set you free.